All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, December 4th at about 3:02 p.m. here in the afternoon. Welcome to all of you who are in chambers with us here. And if anyone wishes to speak during privilege of the floor and they have a blue card, I will take them, or Taylor, our clerk, will take them. Taylor, do you have the rules of? They're right here. Perfect. All right. I just want to remind everybody, because we have more blue cards than typically do in the committee, but I know some of you are familiar faces and understand the process, but for process sake, I'll read them out. Rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. I agree to a 3-minute time limit. I agree to not raise my voice. I agree to not use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of a named county employee other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. I agree to be courteous and to not make comments, gestures, outbursts, or other disruptions while other members of the public or legislators are speaking. I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. Just want to make sure we're all working from the same set of rules. So, I will go first to Teresa Alt. Welcome back.
Thank you. See, it's on the other side today.
Oh yeah, we did move a microphone.
Okay, so I'm just here to say a word once again in favor of supporting the state legislation that would prohibit industrial development agencies from waiving school taxes, particularly, I could say, when their projects are going to add students to the schools long before the taxes kick in. I think it would be useful. It would keep our IDA out of mischief.
Thank you, Teresa. Next, we have Amanda Kirschgessner. Did I get it right? Sorry, I apologize. Feel free to correct me.
Dispatch knows how to spell it by now.
I definitely can't spell it.
My clients can. Oh, yeah, no disrespect. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this afternoon. My name is Amanda Kirschgessner. I live in Ulysses here in Tompkins County. I've lived here my whole life. My mother makes me proudly a 7th-generation resident of Tompkins County. Here today, just representing my business, which is Organizing Potential. I help people strategize on how to optimize their energetic output from the least amount of resources. I want to laud what the county has done with Code Blue. Everyone I've interacted with, from the security to the staff, have been phenomenal. Resource, I know they were asking me for cloth bags. I haven't even had a chance, but I would list off their names, but I don't want to do so, but they're incredible people. And they've been really attentive and responsive to my efforts to communicate with folks who are currently staying there. I'm here today to actually help you identify a serious gap. And before we go doubling down on a homeless shelter, one of the things that's causing a lot of public unsafety is our unstably housed mental health clients. We need a supportive, stabilized housing unit of some variety or another. Depending, it could work very well on a smaller scale, like having one in Enfield and one in Dryden, and spread them out. It could also work as a larger option, like maybe eminent domaining, probably a Steri, because of its proximity to bus routes. The reason I'm suggesting this is OPWDD seems to be a major block in the continuum of care. A lot of the resources get tied up there and people aren't getting into these situations, which would be much better for their health and care than we're currently able to provide. I believe the county should take on this responsibility because there's a tremendous amount of federal resource that comes along with helping support these individuals, as well as we'd be providing for a desperate need of not only our community, but of our region. I'm certain that folks in Cortland, Sigler, Chemung, Steuben, I mean, even as far as Tioga, Yates, you name it, would be happy to send a loved one to our community to provide a more attentive and convenient care response. Please consider exploring this option before you double down too much on homelessness. Homelessness could be temporary, but I've met clients in the past couple weeks who have been in and out of our shelter for years. There's a tremendous amount of resource associated with these people, and we could actually create a solution that is meaningful and provides for desperate need of not only Tompkins County, but of the region. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate your comments, Amanda. Thank you. Lindsay Garner.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Lustig Garner. I'm here because I heard you're talking about the IDA. And a couple of things that I noted through going to the public hearing and then to the vote, there were a lot of the public that had questions, concerns, handful that supported it, but majority, and especially the teachers union, objected because they're running under a $7 million deficit and they can't take on more kids without more money. Well, I was very unimpressed with the fact that there was not any concerns addressed, no questions answered. Going to the vote, still nothing addressed, no concerns answered. And the vote took place and it was 6-1. So just disappointed that the community really wasn't heard. And I have concerns about transparency. Also, the public hearing was never posted on their YouTube channel for the public to watch afterwards. And when I brought that up, they said they tried their best. If I did that in my job, I would probably get sued. So I think we have some things to work on. Also, I am concerned about hearing what's going to happen next week with the library place going back and asking for the age restriction to be removed. That was the purpose of granting the exemption to begin with, and they've only been in business for less than a year. They haven't reduced the rents. They haven't done anything to try to fill that building, and I just am concerned based on what I've seen that the IDA will be the age will be removed, and I just think that is very unfair advantage for people who have significant means to be able to put up projects for profit and then not take the steps necessary to show the hardship needed for a request like that. So that's it. I'm wanting to raise a standard in our community. I think we all deserve it. Just what Amanda said, there are people in need and we could really come together and make Ithaca great again. So thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. First, I just want to also just thank everybody for coming out. I know sometimes the committee meetings are not the most fun place to come speak. So thanks for coming out and engaging with us. I just want to remind everybody too, the full legislature meets on the first and third Tuesday at 5:30 here in Chambers. If you have public comments that you want to share with all of our colleagues that sit around this table, please don't hesitate to engage during that time as well, because we do appreciate the engagement and hearing from members of the public. I do want to make just a quick administrative note. Ann Koreman is joining us remotely and is authorized based on our remote attendance policy to participate remotely. Mike Sigler, a member of our committee, is unable to vote in relation to our remote attendance policy, but is able to be recognized to speak, but just won't be able to engage in any voting. Is that correct?
Correct.
If recognized?
Right, yeah, if he doesn't have extraordinary circumstances,
Yeah.
right.
So just wanted to get that clarified for the record. Next, we have some changes to the agenda from members of the committee, and I'm assuming this was emailed to Ann. This is a tourism program 2024 budget adjustment. I'm going to put that under number 6B, under arts, culture, and tourism. And what I would like to also do, and apologies for this, but just try to accommodate everyone's schedules. Lisa, if you don't have any objection, I'd like to move you down under number 8 and move number 8 up after arts, culture, and tourism. That way we can get Nick out of here and back to work after he's probably had a long day celebrating his birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to Nick too. Sorry, I had to sneak that one in there. And then lastly, we just have Chris Spahn with a workforce development update, which we'll put under the county administrator's report. If there's no objection, we'll go forward with that. I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of November 6th, moved by Veronica, seconded by Travis. Any comments, corrections, suggestions, or edits to those minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll stick with this voting order. Ann, you'll go first, and we'll work to Travis, Veronica, and then back to me. So Ann?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
Veronica?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. You know, I don't have a real formal chair's report. I guess I do want to just maybe take a minute or two to say a few things. There are a number of people, one within our community, and a number of people working on behalf of the county to try to address the urgent need that we have to better serve our homeless population, those experiencing substance abuse disorder, mental health crises, whatever the case may be. I know this time of year we talk about what we're thankful for and what we're grateful for, and as we look towards a new year, what our big plans are. I just think it's important that we take time, one, to recognize the service providers and the advocates and the friends and the people that give gentle hugs and warm embraces to people in need. So thank you to all of you that are doing that. And then also to the rest of the community, now is also a time of year where we could use a lot more of that. And so remember to keep humanity in the conversation, that all people have rights and are individuals, and that we collectively can be part of this solution, because the county is not perfect. We won't have perfect solutions to complex problems. We need to all work together. And I know that many at the county and our county partners are doing their absolute best and working their absolute hardest, and we'll continue to improve as we can. So I just wanted to get that out there, and just, hopefully we can lend a smile, lend a dollar, whatever it might be this time of year, as a lot of people are in need, or just in need of a friendly face or a pleasant conversation. So that's really sort of my chair's message for this meeting. I guess, Nick, we'll go to you first. If you're up, you've got two resolutions. We'll take the resolution approval of the amended bylaws for the Strategic Tourism and Planning Board, STPB ID 12924. I'll happily move those if I could have a second, seconded by Veronica. Nick, I'll turn that over to you.
Sure, thanks. So at the last meeting of the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, this set of bylaws was proposed and voted and approved by that body. This was prompted by earlier in the year desire to standardize formatting among bylaws across advisory boards. So my understanding is this achieves that goal, and we also did some minor housekeeping changes to the bylaws as well. There was a shift in the membership composition. That's Article 3, Section 1. And there was a clarification on virtual attendance in Article 6, Section 2. Other than that, there were no substantive changes to the bylaws. And yeah, just happy to answer any questions folks have.
Nick, can you just highlight in a little bit more detail the membership composition shift?
Yeah, absolutely. So under the current bylaws, we have one recreation representative, one agri-culinary representative, and 4 arts culture representatives. Under this proposal, we would have 2 of each of those designations. And all other seats would stay the same. So we have 2 lodging representatives, 1 from each of our major higher ed institutions, and then 7 at-large representatives. One other noteworthy addition is the addition of a non-voting member representing the Ithaca Downtown Conference Center. So that would be somebody to be determined here following the adoption of the bylaws.
Great. And do we also clarify in this that if appointed by position in by someone's employer, like the named colleges, that the residency requirement is not applicable?
There's an email thread between myself and the clerk's office relating to that for the non-voting members, and clarified that, yeah, those members do not need to satisfy the residency requirement.
Okay. Any questions for Nick on the bylaws? And the clerks have had a chance to review this? Do you know, Nick?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, the
Great.
answer is-
Just double checking. Appreciate the work that you put into this and the work of the SCPB. This is really important for our clerks to be as efficient as possible in their work administering a lot of the committee work that happens here. All right, seeing no more discussion, I guess we'll call for a vote. Ann Koreman.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that passes unanimously. And then, Nick, we also have Tourism Program 2024 Budget Adjustment Resolution number ID 12961. I'll move that if I could have a second. Seconded by Veronica. You want to go ahead and introduce that one?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, there's no explanatory memo for this one. This is a matter that came to my attention sort of following the deadline for getting items on the agenda. We were informed by finance that the account balance for the grants that we issued was negative, and did some investigation on that and realized that we had some 2023 grants that were paid out of 2024 money. So this is a budget adjustment to rectify that situation. We had a similar budget adjustment, if you might recall, back in May, I believe. Just these were three grants that were not caught in that sweep. So this is to get a grant to one tourism capital grant and two tourism advancement grants that were awarded out of 2023, but not paid until this year. So this budget adjustment should resolve that.
Any questions for Nick on this housekeeping resolution? Okay, seeing none. Ann Koreman.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Veronica Pillar.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That carries unanimously. Nick, any other updates from your world, your department?
No, we're continuing to monitor the broadband grant application. We've been in constant contact with the Connect All office, and we'll inform folks as soon as we have something we can share broadly on that. And otherwise, we are days away from the deadline for the Arts and Culture Organization Development Grant. So if you know anybody working in the arts who is in that space, please let them know that the grant deadline is coming up. And we'll be working to review those applications here in the next few weeks. Other than that.
That grant also referred to as ACOD.
ACOD is a typical way it's pronounced.
Those following along. Okay, and then I think the last most important, did you have a good birthday?
I did have a nice birthday. Thank you.
Very good. Happy birthday. All right, appreciate it, Nick. Thank you. Next up, we have under Economic Development. Sean, I don't know if you'd like to join us at the table. We have Legislator Shauna Black, Vice Chair of the Legislature, here with us as well. Shauna had originally raised the question to the committee around the draft resolution in support of the New York State Senate bill and Assembly bill. And so I don't foresee, unless it's the will of the committee, that there'll be action taken on this resolution today, just to set expectations for those following along. But this would be the first part of a discussion to either support this bill or potentially come out with a statement that the legislature or the committee doesn't support the bill. So it's just the first part, and we figured we would have a draft resolution just to speak to or speak from. And then also, this will kind of roll into the next discussion, which is the Industrial Development Agency board composition, and what that should look like, and who should have seats there, and what the process might be. So, Shauna, I guess I would turn it over to you for any thoughts or to kind of kick this off.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. And thanks for letting me join your committee today. I have been working with the ICSD school board as well as the teachers union Obviously, there were some concerns over their budget. The first budget did not pass, and the second budget did. However, that entailed the layoffs of many teachers, substitutes, social workers, and aides in the school district, which of course affects all of our kids. And so whenever I had those discussions, some of the concerns that were voiced were the fact that some of the tax abatements that were coming across the IDA included waiving school taxes. And so did some research, found that there was a Senate bill, which is S89, and the Assembly bill, which is A351. And those are both right now in the legislature. And those are essentially trying to allow school districts' taxes to be waived from being exempt from IDAs. And so I did construct a resolution for this legislature. I also helped ICSD, and my guess is that they probably will be passing theirs. My guess would be towards the end of this month, maybe even in January, and they will send it on to State Senator Webb and Assemblywoman Anna Kellis. My sense of this body is that this would not pass, and so I don't want to waste time bringing forth a resolution that probably will not pass. I don't think it's a good use of our time. So what I would like to focus on, though, is something that I think my colleagues have been receptive to, and that is a resolution that would allow us to increase the number of voting members on the IDA from 7 members to 9 members. And I did work with ICSD School Board, and they passed a resolution asking for a seat at the table for the school districts. And without them knowing how that would work, it seems like what would make the most sense for us as a legislative body would be to increase the number from 7 members to 9 members on the IDA. And the way that we would do that would be for us to pass a resolution, would more than likely start in this committee, and Maury and Katrina would work together to write up the resolution, and then it would go to Assemblywoman Anna Kellis's office and State Senator Webb's office, and it would be a home rule bill that would essentially be signed off at the end of the legislative season. So it is somewhat time sensitive. It would be nice for them to have it in January if we could. And I think I've talked to both of them, and they do support these efforts.
All right, and just to remind everybody, I believe on the 13th of November, we received a copy of the resolution that was passed, and I say we, members of the legislature, from ICSD, from their school board, the resolution asking for an ICSD or a member of any local school board on the TCIDA board. So I just want to remind folks that we did receive a copy of that. I guess, there's 2 pieces, and Sean, I appreciate your sort of counting the votes in your head. I made that mistake last night, if anybody was watching, where I thought something didn't have an appetite, and there seemed to be more of our colleagues that were hungry for that resolution. So I don't want to necessarily just not give any attention to this idea. Want to hear folks' thoughts, and when I say that, for and or against, right? This is just the idea of waiving school taxes. So if all are comfortable, I would like each person to kind of share where they're thinking, get a sense of the committee of what direction we might want to go, if that's okay with folks. And if anybody wants to kick off thoughts on that, and then also include their thoughts on IDA board composition, I'd welcome those comments at this time. Veronica?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Thanks, Shauna. I know these aren't voting items. If this were a resolution supporting the state bill, I probably would vote for it. Because I'm not going to promise that right now because I haven't done all the research I should do, but I am very sympathetic to the difficulty that property tax waivers place on school districts. And the argument is always that a tax abatement doesn't ever reduce taxes, because if there weren't the tax abatement, there wouldn't be the project, and then the taxes wouldn't go up in the first place. And I think that is a bit misleading, because then you could ask, well, why do we charge property taxes at all on new construction, since the property taxes would never go down? But then more to the point, as Shauna brought up, the part of what taxes do is they fund the public services to support all the people and the everything in our county. And for a school district, any project that involves somehow more people moving in, some of whom will have kids, the burden of supporting the populace falls upon the school district as soon as anyone's living there, even if the taxes come later. For the resolution, we're thinking the state bills, though, as one of our public commenters pointed out at previous meetings, if in Tompkins County we wanted to quit abating school taxes, we don't actually need to wait for a state bill to do it. So we could look at other ways to do that if that were the will of the legislature / the IDA, which I certainly can't speak for. For the composition of the IDA, I'm definitely very supportive with having a school district rep on there. Because it impacts everything we just said. I think the original state legislation enabling industrial development agencies names school board in a pretty short list of, or school districts, I forget, school something, in a pretty short list of constituencies that should be represented in the membership of an IDA board. And we don't have that. I don't know if we ever have, but having a seat at the table is important. I had one more thing. Oh yes, Shauna, you were saying you were talking to the Ithaca City School Board District?
Yeah, I spoke with the teachers union president, as well as I was invited to their legislative working group.
And just out of curiosity, have you or anyone else talked to any of the other school districts in our county?
I have not.
About this?
It would also be assumed that it would not just be ICSD. I mean, they are primarily the ones that receive the most projects that go through the IDA, but my assumption is that they would probably need to take turns, because we have, 4 or 5 different school districts here in Tompkins County, and it would definitely not be fair if it was just ICSD.
Yeah. And for the record, for the public, the legislature does ultimately choose who gets appointed to the IDA. So it's not like any one school district or outside entity would make the final selection. People would apply, and presumably if we had a school representative seat, they would articulate in their application their connections to the school district, a school district.
Just a point of information, and Shauna, correct me, there are chairs appointments that are then conferred or approved by the legislature. I think that's the process.
I don't want to give the wrong
I know
information.
the IDA doesn't come through this committee in terms of appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the committee that they report to.
I think that is right. I mean, it's not an advisory board. I think it is the chair's appointment, but we do confirm.
We vote though. I recall having little resolutions.
At the full legislature.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. That's right.
Sorry, Ann, I see your hand up. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. At this point, I wouldn't support a resolution to take out tax abatements for schools. What I think is really important is to have a school district member at the table. And so to be thinking about this, with each vote, as we're considering projects, what does this mean for the schools? Just like we have somebody from the city of Ithaca, a seat. We have that as a municipal seat, but it's, as far as I've been around the county for 7 so years, it's always been a city official. I would also support raising the number of folks on the IDA from 7 to 9. And so then one as a school district member, or school board, whatever, we would figure that out, whatever that seat would be called. And I would also like that other seat for us to think about the different possibilities. Who else is not at the table? And one idea is rural municipal officials have been asking for many years that if they could have a seat at the table too. Granted, more of the projects happen in, in Ithaca proper, but they're not always. Sometimes they are in the rural areas. So what we have is an issue with, communication and representation. So I would like us to think long and hard. I wouldn't want to, myself, I wouldn't want to put another legislator on there. I think three is enough. And when we had 4, we had gotten many comments when we were audited from the state that we had too many legislators. So I think broadening it out and having more robust discussion, with community members would be really helpful. Thank you.
Appreciate the comments, Ann. Travis, if you want to.
I don't have much more to add than what Annie said. I do think districts should be represented. I do think we should go from 7 to 9. I'm not sure about the 8th or 9th person, the other slot. Abatements, I'm not ready to make a decision or talk about that, but I do think we should go to 9 and have schools represented in one of those slots.
Appreciate that. If Ann, go ahead. I see your hand up.
Yeah, one more thought that I forgot to say was that I would like us to consider recommending, and I am on the IDA, full disclosure right now till the end of January, but I would like the IDA, and I could bring that back to them, or maybe it could be a recommendation from this committee of the legislature. When we have openings, I would like not just to have kind of somebody recommended from the IDA, which is usually what happens, is us to post somehow and get the word out that there are openings so that we have a broader set of folks applying. And then when we have a broader set of folks applying, we're going to have hopefully more participation and inclusivity from the community. Thanks.
And I hate to volunteer you for something, but I wonder if something along the lines, because it is a chair's appointment, would you be willing or open to working with the folks who help administer the IDA or members of the IDA, the chair, the legislature, on maybe like a quick communication strategy when a position's open, and maybe that's something that this committee could affirm or recommend or sort of get out there for discussion, so that obviously based on the way that the charter and everything is written, there's only so many levers, but if that's something that we could give a sense of the legislature to the next chair or chairs to come, that this is how we'd like it done. Is that something you'd maybe be willing to look at drafting or outlining for discussion for maybe a January conversation?
Sure. We have IDA meeting next Wednesday, so I'll start the conversation then and get back to you.
Okay. I think that's a great idea. And, I think the more we can give a sense of body direction, the better off we'll be. I'll take a turn. I think there's a place for the school districts on the IDA. And I hope that the school districts and any position that's there by nature of their employment or their affinity or affiliation, take the responsibility seriously to really weigh the benefits to the broader community and not just to the impact of that organization or organizations in which they represent. So I say it with that caveat because if we're going to get somebody from a school district who all they do is just stamp no, 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 or yes, 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 that's not, in my opinion, the spirit of what we want. We want to have vigorous dialogue and discussion, and hopefully people are there with an open mind and looking at the bigger picture. And that may be a no vote, and that's okay, right? That's an okay conclusion to get to. I would not and will not support a resolution supporting the Senate and Assembly bills because I do believe in the value of the abatement process and its contribution to our economic development and our growth. I think it's unfortunate that some leaders in some taxing jurisdictions make a decision to cut people from the bottom rather than to thin out at the top and kind of take the easy road on some, budget shortfalls or hard times. So I want to be sympathetic to those people when there are budgetary cuts that are needed, but I don't believe that's because a project got a tax abatement. I fundamentally I don't subscribe to that. Tax abatements phase in new taxes. They don't eliminate previous taxes. And so my thought and my stance will probably remain that this process is a good one for our community, and we need to continue to look at other levers so that this is not the only lever of economic development that we have. But I would be supportive. I'm not necessarily saying I'm supportive of going to 9, but I would be supportive of looking at what a school board representative on the IDA would be. And I think we need to weigh either the 7-member composition or increasing that to 9. So I think that there's sort of two buckets, 2 scenarios that we need to evaluate. But that's my personal position on the topic. Any other comments or questions, or I want to maybe get a sense of direction from the committee for preparation for January or February if we're unable to meet a January deadline on exploring this idea. I mean, I do think we need to have conversations with the IDA, with IAED, with the school board, continued conversations with members of the community, with other legislatures, with other municipal officials. So there's still a lot of work to be done on this. But what would the committee like to see in terms of actionable items that we can work from coming in future meetings? Travis?
Well, it would be good. I think I heard Shauna say it wouldn't be just Ithaca City School District. We would rotate, right?
We could propose it any.
So if we did that, I don't want to hear just from Ithaca City School District. I would like to hear from school board presidents from several of the schools in the county. Maybe all of them could be invited. I don't want to base decisions on what the school board in Ithaca needs when we have Lansing, Newfield, and the other schools. So that's one part of that. I think you're right. Hearing from IDA and all of them would be good.
So would you like to see a draft of a proposal that then could be commented on by, those sort of named stakeholders?
Yeah.
Okay. Veronica?
Now I have another question. My first question is supposing that locally Tompkins County gets on board with wanting to change the composition of the IDA in some specific way, what is the process and timelines, and maybe this is a question for Shauna again, on getting what we need from the state to do that?
I mean, I think that we would need to have something to our representatives, I would say no later than February, because their attorney actually has to draft up the bill and send it through.
Okay, so if any specific proposal is going through this committee, then what? It would come to this, we need something by the next HED meeting.
Either
that is votable, right?
Either by January 8th, or, you know, if I'm taking a loose interpretation to Shauna's February, deadline, it would be February 5th if we continued with the same time for next year in February, this meeting. The proposed meeting would ideally be the 5th of February, and then that would go to the legislature on the 18th of February. So that would be like the latest.
I think my fear is that in February, we could have all new committee members. Members that aren't in this room right now, part of this conversation.
That's a good point. Is that something, Shauna, that you believe you could assist with in drafting or supporting, or do our professional staff at the county have the capacity right now to assist with that?
I think that's going to be a legal question. I think Maury and Katrina, I mean, we've done home rule resolutions before. There's certain things that need to be noted in them. My assumption is that Maury and Katrina could probably draft something up. It's not going to be like the resolutions that we've seen in the past. I mean, for these resolutions asking for home rule, it's very specific. It's none of the extras really that we add to resolutions. It's very specific of what we're asking. So.
Or is that something that if, we worked with the clerks on, and with your input, is that possible?
To do by the January meeting?
January 8th.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, you got such a cooperative spirit. That's why we love you, Maury.
I think the one thing that would also possibly need to happen is a public hearing as well.
So sorry, go ahead, Maury.
Yeah. What I was going to suggest is we get the proposal circulating as soon as possible among committee members, and then we could sort of work the timeline backwards. Are you thinking public hearing by January 8th as well?
I mean, ideally, it would go through the committee, and then it would need to go through, I think there's 30 days that we have to do after committee. 30 days, it has to go to public hearing.
For the legislature to pass the legislation,
Yeah.
to then hand to
I think you have to do a
representatives.
public hearing for home rule.
Yes,
Yeah.
we would.
Okay. And then I think we actually, after public hearing, you could vote on it that evening.
That's correct also.
And so
Yeah, as long as the correct amount of notice is given both for the public hearing.
maybe it's 14
and
days
the
for
meeting.
public.
No,
We'll
it's seven-
confirm.
I think
Yeah,
it's 7
yeah.
days for public hearing and
Okay.
4 days for the legislature
Okay.
meeting, so we just have to do it earlier.
Great.
Okay. So let's plan on that. Maybe we'll work with Katrina and the clerk staff to
Great.
get something drafted, have Maury weigh in, we'll circulate it amongst members. And then we'll also, with that, try to identify what the timeline is, share that out, and hopefully have a conversation in January around that topic. Does
Awesome.
that seem to be sufficient? Okay.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Shauna. Veronica?
Oh, I guess I would say, at least informally, it probably makes sense to touch base with the other school districts or people from the other school districts about IDA interaction in general. Our website says there's 5 other school districts in the county, and I can talk to people at Newfield, what with me being employed there now,
And probably BOCES as well.
informally.
Greg, I'm happy to give you, I'm happy to give you the people that I've been in contact with,
Great.
so you can invite them over.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
awesome.
If you, when you send that, could just copy Taylor so that we make sure we get the invites right, that'd be great.
Great.
Any other discussion on this topic? Anything we haven't covered? Anything for go to the conversation? All right, then seeing none, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shauna. Okay. Next, we have our county administrator with a number of reports. So We'll start first, Lisa, if you have anything outside of the items on the agenda. If not, we'll jump into the agenda items.
I don't have anything outside those items.
All right, so the first one is the Code Blue Shelter update, and that's ID 12938. And I do know that we have Kit Kephart, our Commissioner of Department of Social Services, and also Liddy Barger on as well. And feel free to participate or not, to the two of you on virtually.
Sure. So in terms of an update on Code Blue sheltering, I don't have anything beyond what I updated the full legislature on last evening. I don't want to repeat that information, though I could repeat it if you'd like me to, or if there are questions, or if you'd like more information about anything that I reported on last night. I know Kit said that she had some updated sheltering numbers that she might be willing to share.
Hi, Kit.
Sure. Hi. So I think last night, Lisa, you had shared that on average in the last week of November, we had about 38 folks sheltered at the Code Blue site. And currently with THA numbers, we have about 74 individuals sheltered. 4 of those are children through the THA program. There have been significant efforts with the transition from St. John's to county sheltering. There's been significant efforts to have people go into permanent housing. So our numbers are probably a bit lower than usual this time of year, but we'll continue to kind of work on those efforts to keep people to get people into permanent housing and keep them there. So.
Can I apologize? Could you say the numbers that you first said at the beginning of your comment again?
Sure. So at the end of November, so with the opening of the Code Blue shelter, we started slow, as Lisa indicated last night, but I think that we had, I'm sorry, I said 38. We had, I think 30, yes, that's right. I think we had 38 people on average for that week. And we were looking, I think we went from like a low of, we started out the first night with nobody coming into shelter, but then we were at about 7 people in shelter at the Code Blue site on the lower end of things, up to about 15 per night at the highest. And with THA numbers, so, you know, the other side of sheltering, we are currently at 74 individuals sheltered. 4 of those are children.
Okay, so we have 74 individuals, 4 of which are children in THA housing. And then we're seeing about 15 or so per evening at the Code Blue shelter?
That's correct. Yes. Yep. It's been varying, Greg, it's been varying from about 7 people up to 15. So it kind of varies. One night we had 13, one night we had 11. So it kind of varies, but sure. In that range, yes.
And when you say 38 people on average, that was for prior year?
That was, so we were kind of averaging out what it looks like the week is going to come out to right now for last week in November. So, yeah. Okay.
And how does this compare? I know previously Code Blue was being done through a Lodge.
Well, Code Blue was, you mean last year was supported by St. John's?
Yes, and served from a hotel partner is where we were.
They were utilizing multiple hotels, as well as they had a 26-bed shelter that they were operating. So, you know, people were at multiple sites, and that's the same situation right now, except that we're utilizing the bank as the Code Blue shelter.
And I think the question from many of my colleagues is, are we seeing utilization that's comparable to prior years?
We are, and so that's, so I when I said the average, I think the reason I kind of stumbled around here, when we look at 2023, I think we were at 35, and I believe that this year we're at 38. Comparing that last week of November, because right now with us taking over Code Blue and just opening that shelter, we don't have full data in and we don't have a lot to compare to because we just started that shelter. But when we look at that last week of November, it's almost identical. It was 35 last year, 38 this year.
Okay, and when you say 38, that's last week of November. And again, I apologize for the questions. I'm not trying to grill you. I'm really just trying to wrap my brain around it. It's a combination of Code Blue and THA?
Nope, that's just Code Blue. And the reason, Greg, why I'm using average is because it can be a little bit difficult when we look at Code Blue numbers. People can go into Code Blue one night and then be THA the next night and vice versa. So it can be difficult to get down to exactly how many people were Code Blue all that week. So we kind of use an average number. But we are looking at, when we look at that client roster list, the number of people, the people that were utilizing that Code Blue shelter intermittently throughout that week. Okay. It averaged out to almost the exact number for 2023 to 2024. It's just that as people come in, they might, like I said, they might come in, stay 2 nights in Code Blue and then apply for THA and go out. And then they might not stay in their hotel room and they might pop back into Code Blue sheltering. So things go up and down with this population.
Sure. I see Lisa has a hand.
I think too, clarifying this, Kit, and the clarifying piece that you explained to me was that is per night, and that includes not only people utilizing the Code Blue shelter, it includes others that have alternative arrangements for a variety of reasons, could be families, could be accessibility issues, et cetera. So that 35 and 38 is inclusive of people at the shelter and people using hotel partners.
Yes.
People staying.
For Code Blue.
For Code Blue.
So not all Code Blue participants are housed or are served at the Key Bank location?
That's correct.
No.
Okay.
Yes, correct. And in fact, before we had the Key Bank shelter open, we were utilizing other resources for shelter. So, yeah.
So let me rephrase this. On behalf of Key Bank, probably, let's just say the bank shelter. We'll drop the key part because they probably don't want it to be known as the Key Bank shelter, the bank building shelter. And so the 15 on average per night is those at the bank location shelter and the former bank location shelter. And the difference is those that are housed in hotel partners or other housing arrangements for Code Blue purposes.
Yes, correct. Sheltering, other sheltering options, because if they're in housing, then they aren't considered part of that number. Yep, absolutely.
All right, thank you for, I'm not a complex math guy, but that was helpful. You good? Did you have no? All right, Lisa, thanks, Kit.
Sure. In addition to what I had reported last night for the sheltering updates, I just also wanted to underscore and acknowledge the work that has been put in by. It's been a multi-departmental effort standing up the Code Blue shelter, as we know, but there's also been a very small team of DSS managers and staff who continue to fill the staffing gaps and on-call overnight duties as we continue to staff up for both Code Blue and THA. So it's they have been literally working around the clock on this, and my hat's off to them. And now they and HR are shifting to recruiting, interviewing, hiring, and onboarding for the continued THA sheltering using motel partners. The other thing that, Greg, you had asked about, I believe it was at the last HED meeting, were you're interested in what other counties are doing around Code Blue. I was able to send an email out to my listserv of other county administrators, and I heard back from maybe 6 or 8 of them. And so I'll just read out some of the what I heard from, and I don't know if it's okay to, I'll refrain from mentioning the counties' names, but I've heard from some counties using the Salvation Army for overnight shelter in their community, and another nonprofit for daytime warming center. In one county, if a hotel room cannot be secured for Code Blue, they are sheltering people overnight in their DSS lobby with sheriff's deputies assigned to monitor. And future planning has just begun in that county to develop a shelter. In one county, they contract with a nonprofit that runs a warming center in their Salvation Army from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. One county was reconfiguring space in their own county-owned human services campus for Code Blue sheltering, kind of similar to what we're doing. And they were just starting that process in the midst of hiring, training, and that was as of last week. Another county uses Salvation Army. And then a couple of counties just said that they've been relying on partnerships with motels, but those have become increasingly untenable. They don't have local nonprofit service providers. So another one said that their motel partners are at or near capacity this winter. So several of our counterparts are in similar situations and sound like some of them are sweating it out this winter. So that was my informal surveying among other counties.
Well, I appreciate the insight. It makes me feel a little bit better for us, but it makes me feel a lot worse for some other folks.
And statewide, that this
yeah.
is.
And most importantly, right, the people that they're trying to serve and accommodate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But that's good to hear. I think, perspective of, I think we should always be leading the pack, but perspective is helpful.
And it could also stand to reason that those who have it all squared away did not respond. So there may be others that have it more squared away, or they are partnering with a nonprofit and all as well. But I think, based on this, it is a concern.
And can you maybe touch on, Lisa, as it relates to THA and Code Blue? Obviously, this is not the county will continue to be in this business as long as the county needs to be in this. And I don't mean to say business, but this activity or action. What is the plan to move out of that, or RFP, RFQ, one of the requests for?
Yes. So simultaneous to the kind of the near term, very immediate, meeting the immediate needs, which we're still focusing on. We've been trying to also develop the interim near-term solution and then longer term. So the interim, we've been securing contracts with, again, motel partners for that interim solution, and we would like at the same time, and we have been cultivating relationships with interested potential shelter operators, nonprofit shelter operators, one in particular who's indicated an interest in a capacity. And we would like very much to be able to hand over the operations with that. And I'll just talk about the longer term, because the handing over those operations and the longer term are related. In the longer term, a development and and construction of a homeless shelter, which the legislature just voted on last night. We would like to partner with a not-for-profit as the shelter operator. And so in order to do that, we would envision releasing an RFP for that process. There's more work to be done, and we're working behind the scenes on all of this. And we would very much like for that interim provider, if you will, and that longer-term provider to be the same provider.
Sure.
To be able to have a more mission-based, service-oriented nonprofit provider who has some capacity and experience doing this to be able to help us in the longer term.
Questions for Lisa on the topic of Code Blue, THA, shelter service providers, any of those relevant topics? Veronica?
Are you able to say whether the nonprofit or nonprofits that expressed interest in taking over sheltering is anyone that already has some sort of local presence in Tompkins County, or would they be coming in fresh from elsewhere?
I would say there's both a local, regional presence, yeah.
Awesome, thanks.
Mike Sigler, I see your hand.
Thank you, Greg. My question, Lisa, is, I understand the idea to partner with a not-for-profit. I'm kind of guessing that it's because of cost. I'm wondering, I don't want to put too much extra work on you, but have these folks that we've just hired for this Code Blue shelter, can we do a cost analysis of what if we didn't partner? What if the county just said, you know what, we're going to do this, and we're not going to try to partner with with a not-for-profit to do it. I'd just be curious to know if we really are looking at a savings, or if the county shouldn't just take that role.
It's a great question, Mike, and I think we would, we are needing to, and we are keeping track of our costs for everything related to both Code Blue and THA and the staffing, the security, et cetera. And we will need to compare those costs to any application that we receive through the RFP process to compare and determine whether, which direction is the best direction to go in. And we'll rely a lot on our DSS leadership also in that, because it's a considerable amount of management time and attention as well. And we're not fully staffed up yet, but we will need to do a cost analysis on that, as well as look at other aspects as well.
Travis?
Lisa, thank you for that. To Mike's point, I think one of the other pieces to look at, and I'm sure when you said other aspects, this is on your mind, is the actual utilization of the, what'd you call it, Greg? The bank shelter?
Bank shelter.
The bank shelter. What do those numbers look like? So if we average 15 to 20 over the course of the season, I'm sure we're going to get into colder weather and it may be 15 to 25. But the question becomes, I guess, why are people not utilizing it as much? And is that the business we want to be in? So, I think that who runs the shelter is an indicator of how many people are going to be at the shelter. So you can take DSS out of the equation. If you have a shelter provider that's a nonprofit that has horrible relationships with people don't utilize the shelter, right? And so I think part of all of this is the utilization of the shelter. And are we, whether it's a nonprofit or staff from DSS, are we getting the best bang for the dollar? Are people utilizing it as much as possible? And I don't necessarily think it matters who's running it, are people using it, because then we're not getting the value out of it. So, you know, you could have, I'm not going to put any particular nonprofit in that category, but you could have a nonprofit that's not doing a very good job. It's creating a situation where people don't want to utilize it, and we're not getting the value for our money. So I think that's a big thing, is the utilization of that particular location. It's hard to tell what it looks like at the other places, right? Because we don't have the same amount of staff, and it's not. So I think utilization is a big part of that.
Agreed. Thank you, Travis. And yeah, and so far we have very limited data so far, but I agree. It's a good point. Thank you.
I think it's important that we, as we go down this path, right, we remain client focused, right? Whoever we're serving needs to be the priority, and whoever is best suited to serve them should be the one that operates that, right? Right now, based on our responses, we were the best one suited to do that because we could step up and fill the need. I think in the future, you know, I'm pleading with our not-for-profit and community partners to accept the challenge and know that the county's fully behind and willing to support and stand ready, because this is a very specialized, you know, it's becoming less niche because there's more and more of this type of work that's required in communities. But we need to make sure we have the right people in place. And I think right now we have the best possible team that we could assemble. And we need to continue to look at who the right players are moving forward.
Yes, yes. And I think this leads into the next discussion item around living wage, because given what we're asking for in these roles, for either for these roles to be played either by county employees or by nonprofit employees, we need to make sure that people are compensated for what the difficult work at times, and the judgment calls, and the set of skills that we're looking for to be client-centered and to provide the best care that we can, because these are very complex situations that staff are needing to address in these roles. So whether it be county staff or nonprofit staff, they need to be compensated accordingly.
I want to go to Veronica, maybe to take us out of this conversation or to wrap us up here, and then move into that living wage conversation.
Sure, yeah. Sorry for backing up a little. I just wanted to toss out some thoughts as long as we were having the conversation, that what Greg, you just said, and Travis, you just said, I think was really important about who's operating the shelter. I'd just like to say in the public, it would be, if we have a nonprofit partner going forward, I would love to know how, like, what the structure of oversight over the operations and how it's going is. Like, what is I don't need to be, as a legislator, involved in the specifics of it, but just like, how is that done? I guess also same if it's internal, although I imagine that's probably easier. If the county were to operate a shelter, I would love to see a new department, like a Department of Emergency Shelter, as opposed to it being under DSS, which this is not, no criticism to DSS. It's just that providing, other than like the Code Blue mandate, providing unconditional support to people is not what DSS does. Administering state programs that do come with a lot of conditions is what they do. And in some ways, those are fundamentally different, even though a lot of people would be utilizing both things. And then I know in terms of shelter utilization, anecdotally, I've heard that, well, and I think it's come up at these meetings, that people aren't gonna, I don't know about now that the bank shelter is open, like why people are and aren't there. I've heard that people don't want to go be in congregate shelter at all. So, and that's only one of many factors. Though that particular one, looking ahead to like 2027, 2028 is going to be changed with a new shelter building, no matter who is operating it. And in the meantime, we got what we got, and big gratitude to all the people staffing and setting up what we got.
I think a lot of these components of the conversation will continue to take place, hopefully in a committee. If it is HED in the next committee structure, great. If it's wherever, you know, I think that having, if we do bring on a partner, sort of putting it in the RFP, that there'll be regular communications with committee of the legislature, or, you know, those sort of things, so that we can stay on top and you know, advised on the issues, and then, you know, working with DSS and the continuum of care and the sort of that team approach. But I definitely think we can work on some of those levers, some of those oversights as we move forward. You know, and as it relates to the shelter, the action that the legislature took last night, and I don't want to repeat myself from last night, was just the first step, right? Was just the acquisition of land to begin the development of a solution to a complex issue. It may be congregate, it may be lower barrier, it may be many things that have yet to be decided, which will have full input from the community, from professionals, from legislators, and beyond, to make sure that we get it right. But this is just one piece in a complex puzzle. And I think it's, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but the sense I get from the body that we want to be able to create a space where we can wrap around all different types of needs and have different service providers there to support and play active roles and be a part of it all. But we do need a built environment. We do need some space to do that in. And this is the beginning of that. But there's plenty more spaces to be built in the solution to this problem. So with that, if we're good, I would like to move on to the Tompkins County Living Wage discussion, ID 12940. This was something that Lisa had flagged for me. I don't intend there to be any action out of this committee. This was more to start the conversation. In your agenda packet on package page 16, you'll see attachment C. This is attached to all Tompkins County contracts, correct, Lisa?
That's correct.
And the requirements and such, and with the expectation that the living wage in 2025 was projected to go to 26.
Oh, no, sorry, you're right, 24, a $6 increase.
A $6 increase, 24 and change, I think, or 24 something. The impact, right? And again, this is not a statement that the county needs to move away from this policy. This is a conversation of what is the impact of this policy now that there's significant wage growth in the living wage expectation. So Lisa, I guess if you have other items to add or share, and then, you know, like to hear from legislators. This is also a policy that would need to make its way through a number of committees, HED, GO, BCP, you know, all of the above, if there were to be a change.
Sure. So I can just lay the groundwork, and I know through this committee in 2025, it's planned for additional consideration of the living wage as the county minimum wage, and work with a consultant or contractor on that in 2025. This, I wanted to just flag for folks' attention because I've been hearing from a number of department heads as well as some community organizations about concerns about the county's policy or encouragement for contractors to be living wage providers. And so I just thought it was, I'd mentioned it at the very end of the last HED meeting, and wanted to just kind of start the conversation with where we are now, what happens and what is attached to all of our contracts. And this is also part of all of the backing up from the contract piece, which is really the final piece when we determine that we're going to do business with an organization or an individual. The RFP piece, this is also attached to the RFPs, and it's a component for consideration, but not a requirement when we are reviewing RFP applications. So the county highly encourages the organizations with whom we do business to be living wage employers. Our current contracting software does not allow us to pull out how many of our contracts are living wage versus non-living wage employers. I think that it's accurate to say that the vast majority of our contractors are. Many of our contracts are prevailing wage, which is higher than the living wage. But even outside of that, most of our contractors, we believe, are living wage employers. We have over or around 900 active contracts, and we are in the process of transitioning to a different contracting software where hopefully in 2025 going forward, we will be able to pull out that information. We just don't have it available to us now. So I guess that's a bit of the backdrop on this. The other piece of this puzzle is where the county is itself as an employer and how that will impact us in 2025. And that also could be conversation in other committees of the legislature, including Budget, Capital, and Personnel and/or GO. But I'll say, after having completed negotiations with, I guess, 3 of our 4 bargaining units, all 4 of our bargaining units are up to date now with the contracts, and we just finished active negotiations with 3 out of the 4 of them in this last year, and made every attempt to address through our compensation analysis and salary increases. We tried to ensure that we had we addressed compression issues and tried to, where necessary, collapse labor grades to raise the starting salaries so that we would be far ahead of the current living wage. Even after doing that in 2025, if and when it's announced that the local living wage rises to $24 an hour, we will be behind in at least 3 out of 4 of our bargaining units. So we will need to make some adjustments there.
And Lisa, correct me, is there a period of time where the employer has, as a certified living wage employer through the worker center, right, to catch up to the living wage?
Yeah, I think traditionally it's been that the living wage standard is announced in a given year, and then in order to maintain your certification, you have that year into the next year to make the adjustments commensurate with that. So
kind of a year behind at max.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And this would, at the county level, impact our poll workers, which we've committed to a living wage, and that wage compression issue, and probably a number of the beginning, it was entry level pay grades.
Yep, entry level, our seasonal staff, and many other entry level titles.
Okay. If, I guess, members of the committee or thoughts or questions, comments on this to Lisa? It's okay. Veronica?
Were you going to say something? Okay. Thanks for laying this out and all the difficulties. I do think it's important for the county to remain a living wage employer and keep this in the contracts. I guess just if anyone listening out of this room doesn't know what the living wage is I guess it can be calculated different ways, but people, experts in this field choose a methodology for measuring it, which is based on identifying here's what a one-person household or two or three or whatever, generally calculated with no children in the mix, is going to need to live reasonably in terms of like an apartment, utilities, food, all that. Then particular references are used to look up the current prices of all those things, and this is calculated into a wage. So the methodology is chosen, but then the number is simply identified. It's not chosen each year. So if prices go up a lot, then the number that is the living wage will go up a lot, and costs for everyone go up a lot, and nobody is probably feeling great about that. And paying higher wages is hard, but if we slip below the living wage, I mean consistently, not just for a year or whatever, the time to negotiate contracts, the time to catch everything up, then I think we're basically saying that when push comes to shove with costs, a place to draw out more resources from is our lowest paid employees, and that does not seem like a great idea. So I think that we should figure out how to continue to pay everyone a living wage. And I don't know precisely how to figure that out, but I don't think it's something we should compromise on. I'd also say if, the more people's wages in the county in general drop below what is required to live frugally, comfortably, the more all those indicators of need that our county administrator reports every April in the budget retreat go up, 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 and then we go, oh, look at all this need that in various non-ideal ways, the county or sometimes the state with its taxpayer funds are going to have to come and try to backstop in emergency ways. So reducing wages doesn't net you the total amount of money by which you've reduced the wages. Sorry, no one's reducing wages in absolute dollar terms, but I think you know what?
That makes sense,
yeah. Yeah, you don't paying lower wages to already lower paid people will come around to hit us on the back end, at least to some extent.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Veronica, and not seeing any other of my colleagues jumping in on this one. Now, I guess I see Ann jumping in, but I'll finish first. I think we really need to just keep a close eye and close ear on this. And if we start to hear that this is a part of our contract that's not attainable or just prohibitive, or, we just need to be aware. But I would struggle from a departure from that statement for many of the reasons, or I think the main reason Veronica pointed out of at some point someone will pay for it regardless of, where it comes from. This is a question of where resource comes from, either employer or public assistance or nonprofit organizations. But I do think there are things that we should be doing to lower the cost of living within our community so that this number doesn't continue to get out of control. And those are ways that we can invest and see, I believe, a return on keeping Tompkins County as affordable as possible, not seeing this number skyrocket to an unaffordable place that many perceive as unaffordable if they're the ones paying it to people. Ann Koreman.
Thanks. As was mentioned recently at a meeting about, we're paying for this, infrastructure, but we're not paying for this other infrastructure. So to me, I kind of look at that, as like a yes and thing. Like, yes, we want to help people who are experiencing homelessness. We want to help people. We want to also prevent that from happening. And one of the ways we can help prevent that is by giving them enough that they can live off of that. And one of those ways is to push for a living wage. And a living wage, one of those things about that is it helps people. They can't all, I'm not saying everybody that gets a living wage can do this, but it helps them more so than below living wage to put a little buffer in their finances so that they can have some savings if they do lose their job. Are they going to be out on the street in a week or two? Or are they going to be able to, hold off, for a couple of months? So, and are they going to be able to get nutritious food and things like that? And and I'll say just yes to everything else that was said. So especially what Veronica said about, we're going to be paying it here or we're going to be paying it somewhere else. In services, and just the amount of time that it takes to try and navigate all the other services that we have is hard to do if you're working. So think about somebody working less than living wage and they need to get food assistance or assistance with housing. It's a laborious process where you have to apply a lot of times over and over again, or trying to figure out how to do that. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Ann. I have Travis.
Yeah, I'm a supporter of living wage, and what I'm about to say has nothing to do with whether we should be living wage or not. All of this comes down to housing. There are people that make way above the living wage and can't afford housing. We don't have enough affordable housing, low-income housing, all the different types of housing to support folks in this community. At some point in time, that's the bigger thing that has to be addressed in a living. Like, would we get to a point where we're doing $32 an hour or $40 an hour for a living wage because of housing? We have folks that are going to DSS to get housing services, and there's nowhere for them to go. So you can go through all of this stuff, you can get approved, but there's nowhere to go. And then, in many cases, we're pushing people further and further outside of the city to be able to find this, so we all know what issues that causes. There are young people that are moving out of the county because they can't afford to live here. There are people not taking jobs within the county because they can't afford to live here. So the living wage is something that we need to constantly be doing for people. But as Greg said, to what level? Because we're not able to meet people's needs who are making above a living wage. And that's an issue. We really have to, as a county, as a city, grapple with this housing issue. I'm not even going to get into it right now. That's a whole different thing, but that drives this. We have to really address this issue.
Travis, appreciate your thoughts. I appreciate all my colleagues' thoughts on the topic. In 2025, I kind of hinted at this last night, but I hope folks know that I'm serious. I would really like to explore the idea of a infrastructure capital grant type program to find parcels that are development ready, that are lacking sufficient infrastructure to create housing. Oftentimes for development, that's one of the largest barriers, that carrying costs, having to put in the roads, having to put in the sewer, having to put in the water. That's a big upfront expense that often either is not borrowed for, isn't, is capital that's coming out of the developer, which makes it kind of cost prohibitive in many situations. So there's a lot of unique things there, and I think we need to figure out a way as a county to be contributing to that. So I will lean heavily on, with consent and permission from the chair, the county administrator, and the rest of the legislature to explore something like that with our planning department, with our county attorney, on how we might be able to make investments that are forward-looking, that are growth-centric, that are affordability-based. And again, I do believe that development of housing at every level will create some level of affordability, because there'll be just greater numbers. But I also believe that for sale or for ownership type houses, condos, whatever the case may be, is a direction we need to go, because that's ultimately how you can assist people in building real wealth for themselves, for their families, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. So that is one of my major goals and focus for 2025, is how we can finally stop talking about it and for once really start doing something about it. And I know that, Ann, we've had this conversation at the I just drew a blank.
Community Housing Development Fund.
Thank you. And we're convening a small group of that to look at what are some other ways we can leverage that fund to support this process. And Ann chairs that group, and Travis and I are members of that as well. So I think 25 is going to be a housing focused year, hopefully, and we can set that as a priority for years to come. But Lisa, did we satisfy the need for the conversation and provide enough kind of consensus feedback for where we believe this committee sits? And
sure,
you can ask other committees.
Yeah, I think I had two other thoughts I just wanted to make you aware of. So one would be, given that the county strongly encourages of its contractors to be living wage employers, and we think now that most of them are, it will be important to capture that baseline data when we're able to just to understand how many thus far are, how many of our contracts do offer living wages, and to track that over time, because if we're hearing already concerns from particularly some of our nonprofit providers and contractors that they may have trouble meeting that standard, it's something that we may want to track and monitor. And thus far in our process, it's been strongly recommended but not required, and we ask our contractors that can't meet it, why can't you meet it, what could be done, et cetera. So I think we still want to continue answering those questions. And the second piece of it is, this, as the county's budget officer, this may come back to the county in our contracts as requests for greater compensation in our contracts in order for our contractors to be able to meet living wage standards. So that's something else to be aware of in the coming year as we may be faced with these. We know we're going to be faced with this huge jump in living wage.
Thank you. Well, that leaves us, without further ado, Chris Spawn, to come up and talk about workforce development and all the good work that is being done in that realm. Turn it over to you, Chris. So I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for adding me to the agenda, Taylor and Greg. Appreciate it. Yeah, so speaking of housing, that actually does impact workforce in the area. It impacts lower paying jobs too, because it's like, how can you even fill those positions if you can't even afford to live here and you got to commute far away, or if you don't have a car. So it definitely is hurting a lot of people. Even myself, I moved here 2.5 years ago, and I'm a department head of Tompkins County. I live in an apartment up in Lansing, so I don't see myself having a house anytime soon. So, we are going to see a point where eventually people just don't want to live in an apartment anymore, or just the rent gets too high that they're going to be leaving our area too. So there's definitely like long-term at every single level of our workforce. So I appreciate that y'all are even talking about this in the first place. I just have a few updates. Shouldn't take me too long. I just wanted to, since this is our last meeting of the year, I want to say thank you to everybody and thank you for your support. And just thank you for always being there to listen to what we're doing. So we have the youth employment program coming up. That's like our summer youth employment program. So we got money from the state, and this is for youth who are at risk of gun violence. That's under the GIVE initiative. So that's youth in the city of Ithaca and the town of Ithaca. So we'll have summer employment opportunities for them all throughout the year. We will run the program, and workforce development staff will go across the county with different work sites like in the summer. And then Ithaca Youth Bureau will also be part of this program also. That's $350K coming into our county just for workforce, tailored to our youth from high needs communities. Second, we also have money coming from the state for upskilling and reskilling workers to transition them into clean energy positions. That's about $90K that we're getting. And that's also a new program. These are two new grants that we're having to deal with right now. Not having to deal with in a bad way, but something that we are focusing on. So we really appreciate the Tompkins County legislator and the members here for your support of our transition workforce specialist position, because it allows us to take this money and implement these programs. If we didn't have that OTR approved, then it would be a huge challenge to do a lot of these programs, and we would more than likely have to say no to that money that came our way. Second, we completed the Tompkins County Opportunity Map for Youth, so that was part of the Strategic Operations Plan. That was an objective that we were going to focus on. So this was created by the Youth Employment Resource Team, which is a group of providers. There's people from the Learning Web, Ithaca Youth Bureau, CSD BOCES. I'm not going to go down the whole list because I'll miss people, but we all serve youth, and we felt that there should be a resource map out there for youth. So if they need help finding health services, career services, education, housing, food services, there should be a hub for them to go to and kind of find those resources. So our communication specialist, Scout Frost, was able to put all these ideas into a Google map. And I will share more of that in the January meeting. That will be on the new county website also. So basically, the stuff is split up into sections. So health would be like blue, and career services would be red, and education would be green. So there's all these dots on a Google map, and you can filter it out too. If I just want to see health, or if I just want to see food, you can just see those things. And you click on the dot, and you kind of see like where stuff is in relation to the commons in different areas. And you click on it, and there's information. It has contact information, where to go, and then being that it's on Google Maps, you can also click get directions. So it's also easy that like wherever you are, you can just get directions to where you need to go. Again, trying to simplify the process for everybody, make it easy as possible for them to go to resources and find them. We're exploring ways to also have like stuff that we can leave at the library in different locations that's more simpler. An open up map, kind of like you see touristy areas where there's like, go to this or this. Well, we're gonna do that for services for our youth in the area. Second, the Indeed Job Search Academy. So I've been talking with Indeed about their Job Search Academy platform and talking with their creative team. Basically, this is just a free resource that Indeed has where it kind of centralizes all of Indeed's job search resources, career exploration, videos, all in one spot. And then we can also combine links from our department, like Find a Job, and these are the services we offer. So it's on Indeed. People can go to it. Again, I'll share that at the next meeting once it actually goes live. But this is just meant to streamline Indeed services and our services into one, because we know a ton of people are using Indeed, and there's a ton of people that go to our website, so we're just trying to put that together. So that's a no strings attached, free relationship. They do this with schools throughout the country, government agencies. So we would be the third workforce development board area in the country that will be on this platform. So eventually this will grow, and there's more stuff that can come of it, but I can't imagine it right now, but there will be more that goes to it. But going back to this topic, the only reason we found out about this was because we had our NIATEP Workforce Conference, which is our state conference that we go to every year. Myself and our two deputies went, and we kind of spread out and go out to all these different sessions. So if I just went myself, I would have never gone to this one and would have never had that connection. But we had someone else go to one of these sessions, and they told me, like, we got to do this. So I just want to say, like, I support, like, funding for our staff to go to conferences and things like that, because it does make a difference. Like, we can easily make connections, we can do great stuff like this. If we never went to this conference, then we would probably never would have found out about this. I definitely think that's something that's very important. And finally, the Facing Race Conference. 2 weeks ago, I attended the Facing Race National Conference in St. Louis. It is the nation's largest multiracial, intergenerational racial justice conference. About 4,000 people went. So it's a one-of-a-kind event where there's organizers, grassroots people, people at government level, elected officials. We had a few from our area that were in attendance. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to learn from others and then also share that of what's going on in our area and the challenges that we face. So also I want to thank Charlene Holmes for her work and her role, and then also allowing us to even be able to go on this trip and you know, doing her work to make this trip possible for all of us. I think it's really impactful, and we really appreciate the support of the legislator also on these different initiatives that are going on in the county. I think it does make a difference in the staff that want to come work with us. Also, the fact that they see that the county is working on this, and that also makes us a more attractive employer too. So I would just hope going into next year we continue supporting the CEDO and then JEDI, which is the group that county employees are part of that help to ensure we're meeting our diversity statements and everything that we want to work towards. But those are all my updates today. I'll take up more of your time in January. Are we going to meet? Is this the same committee meets in January, or is there going to be new committees?
Yeah, the way the legislature committees work is that January is a continuation of the prior year, and then the new committee assignments start in February.
Okay.
So our meeting, just to remind everyone, is January the 8th at 3 p.m. Sorry, the 9th?
The 9th.
The 9th. See, made a mistake already. It is the 9th at 3 p.m. Just to not be right on top of the New Year's holiday.
Oh, yeah. It's coming fast.
It's coming fast. Yeah. Chris, I appreciate, if my colleagues have any questions for Chris, sounds like there's a lot going on. As always, appreciate the work. I think if you're going to present this youth resource mapping tool in January, is that the thought?
I would like to, or whatever is best.
Okay, so if it's January or February or when that may be, I would just ask that maybe you share a little preview with the entire legislature before that meeting via email, so that if there's interested members of the legislature, they can come, because I know Legislator Brown and others are pretty passionate about youth services and how we're working with our youth within the community, so.
Yeah, that'd be actually great, because, you know, we can always, it's not a final product too, so we can always build off of everyone's ideas, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Veronica?
Sorry, I've stopped paying attention for a second. Did you say where we can currently find that youth opportunity?
Yeah, so it'll be up there on December 11th when the new website goes live. So I can share that then also.
If you just share a note with the members of the committee or the legislature that's up, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Yep. And also just thanks for linking the thread of funding that your department gets and what you can do with it and what more opportunities that brings in. We always hope that all our budget lines are bearing fruit, and it's very cool to have that specifically identified.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Keep bringing the fruit.
I will.
That's a good point.
We'll keep eating.
That. Yeah. That's great. Committee member report. Anybody for the good of the Ann Koreman?
Yeah, since we had 14 minutes, I have a 13-minute report. I want just to do real quick.
Off there, Ann, thanks for contributing. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
What technical difficulties?
Yeah, sorry,
and you need to stop the Zoom.
Hear you.
So I reported to about this new development going in Trumansburg last night, but I just wanted to just point this out since this is our housing committee and we talked about housing quite a bit today. So Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services is in the final stages of finishing the Village Grove development in Trumansburg. And so I'm just going to repeat a little bit. Maybe it's there's 40 rental units in a multifamily building, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, 2 townhome rental buildings with 3 units each, 10 for sale homes that will be permanently affordable through the Community Housing Trust, and 9 lots for market rate construction. And so one of the things that I wanted to just mention is that with the 40 rental units in the multifamily building, they had, I believe the number was 140 applicants. So they had to do a lottery, which INHS often has to do. They, in my opinion, and as a former home inspector, they do really good construction, very energy efficient. This is their most energy efficient project. So that translates into very low utilities for these folks. So this takes a little bite out of it. This project took 7 years to get this far. It's not quite done, but it's 7 years. So kudos to INHS, and I'd like to figure out how we can support them and any other agency doing this type of work. So thanks.
Thanks for highlighting that, Ann. I also want to mention and shout out to INHS for their house setting party, I guess, that they had over on Sear Street, which was a project that the county was responsible for acquiring the land and then portioning that off to INHS in a transaction where I believe it's 4 new, right? 4 or 5?
4
new
I
units,
believe,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, 4 new units, for sale, single family homes, about 1,500 square feet. And it was really neat to watch one at about 10:30 yesterday morning be set. And then by the time I came back at 5 o'clock, it had a roof and a second story and a stairwell and a porch, and it was pretty much done. And so to drive down here today and to see a second one in place, and I'm sure tomorrow there'll be a third one and so on. You know, it's a unique way of building this type of construction. And I think one of the things that we should really be looking to as we have large industrial space, potentially like a Southworks, et cetera, is what can we do to attract some sort of modular or manufacturer of these type of home products into our community so that we reduce the transportation, et cetera, coming from Pennsylvania, Ohio, and other states where these are very popular to build. But I think it was really neat to watch that process and the fact that INHS kind of made a block party of sorts out of it. All the neighbors were there, our planning department was there, the city, town, many different folks were around. So kudos, hats off to them and to all involved, because it's 4 more units, and you know, every little bit helps. With that being said, if there's no other items to discuss, I will call us adjourned at 4:50. Have a great day, have a great holiday, and we'll see everybody after the new year.